welcome back. Jenna's Tea Emporium. I've actually, it's taken me a little longer to get this one out. I will say, it is hard coming up with topics. Yeah, like especially like when you don't have like a crew working with you or helping you and you're just the talent of the podcast. But you know, you always got to start somewhere, right? But yeah, and like trying to figure out how to get guests on too, all while recording. I haven't figured that out yet. Cause yeah, I would love to give guests on, friends, whatever you want to call them, having, conversations with me about different topics. I think it can be more engaging. So hopefully I can figure that out. All I've had so far is my youngest be willing to go on with me. But yeah, I would definitely like to have some guests on. So fingers crossed I can get that figured out sooner than later. So I can get some, like I said, more topics. Because sometimes, like I said, it's just when you're just talking by yourself or whatever, it's not as engaging. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out. Again, this is all new to me. So I'm just muddling my way through it or whatever. I would like to be legit, like have real microphones, all that jazz. Maybe invest in a laptop. I don't know. That's just what I'm hoping. So thank you for those who continue to watch and follow this journey. I appreciate you. So today's topic is going to be staying in a marriage or a relationship because you have children. I'm just speaking like as far as my opinion. This would be my disclaimer. This is my opinion. My experience, own personal experience, my thoughts, right, or observations. I could only speak to that. And this is why I say this is where it'd be interesting to have a conversation with somebody who has done it, or is doing it, or didn't do it, because everyone has their thoughts, their reasons as to why they stay or why they go. I'm not here to judge nobody. Everybody lives their own life. But again, I'm just curious as to people's thought process, as to why maybe they stay or why maybe they go. So that's what this one's going to be about today. Again, I would love to have had somebody on here to have, a conversation, a back and forth conversation about it. But anyway, I will proceed by myself again. So if you followed me, I was married before, a very short-lived marriage. Not a good marriage. Obviously, hindsight was 20/20, and I could go back and do it. Wouldn't have. As you get older, you look back, you're like, yeah, that wasn't love, that was lust. So grateful for my 2 children. Even though being a single parent has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But yeah, I'm so grateful for my daughters, like so grateful for my daughters. But yeah, I was just not in a good marriage. He was just not present. He was more worried about partying, cheating, lying, all that jazz. And unfortunately, I got pregnant pretty quick on meeting him. And with him not being from the country, being from Jamaica, and like I said, getting pregnant so quickly, Shame on me. And you know, the stressors of, oh, how am I gonna take care of this kid? Blah, 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 all this stuff. He's not from here. He doesn't have a green card. He doesn't have a social security card. All that jazz put me into a whirlwind that we had like some quick courthouse wedding. It wasn't even like a real wedding. But yeah, I mean, as obviously we started living together, all this stuff came about, you know, the lying, the cheating, just the arguing, just very, very unhealthy and toxic. And you know, by then too, I had my daughter eventually, obviously, and you start to, I know for me, even though my child was very, very young, I started to feel and notice obviously how I was acting, because it was obviously affecting my day-to-day life. I mean, obviously, how can it not? So it was like I could feel myself somewhat being snippy to my oldest or whatever. And again, she was very, very young. I mean, we're talking, like I said, I left when she was very young, both my kids. So well, actually, I left and then got pregnant with my second kid. Anyway, that's besides the point. So I left, I left with my youngest. I mean, when my oldest was young. I think we were married for maybe 2.5 years. And yeah, just an absolute horrific marriage. I can honestly say nothing positive about that marriage, but like I said, out of it, I got 2 kids, and one was after I left. So, no judging. So yeah, but anyway, like the stress of constantly like arguing just about anything and everything. It's like, oh, are you going to show up because, you know, supposedly worked a night shift? Oh, you're going to show up to take your kid to school today? Are you going to help pay for daycare? Are you going to help pay for the bills, right? Just the constant unnecessary arguing, always wanting to be out partying every weekend, just like always. And again, I could just feel myself, it trickling down to my parenting and taking it out on my kid unintentionally. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that about me at all. And I'm glad that I was self-aware of that to, you know, make that type of change or whatever. And again, I don't know if, you know, Taya, my oldest, would even remember that because she was so little. Hopefully not. Because again, that played a big part as to why I decided, yeah, this is not working for me. You know, I got to the point where I was like, I know, and my parents are still married to this day. Now, again, no marriage or relationship is perfect in any way, shape, or form. Like, that's unrealistic. Like, that's a fantasy world. Like, it's not sunshine and lollipops every day, and it takes work. And kudos to people that actually can work through it, where there's 2 people who actually want to stay together and genuinely work through it and are able to get to the other side. I applaud you for that. Good for you. That's great, especially when kids are involved. Because again, relationships, marriages are up and down. That's just a part of it. So yeah, I applaud and look up to people that can make it work, because it does. It takes 2 people to thoroughly, you know, put your foot in it and like I said, really make it work. I knew for me, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. When you're dealing with a pathological liar and a cheater and all that stuff, like very selfish person, not gonna happen. So it eventually got to the point, I remember sitting him down on our couch one day, and I think it was like October 31st. I could be wrong. I don't know why that date sticks in my head. And I literally was like, listen, like, as of today, like, we're done. I'm done, we're done. You go ahead and continue to do the stuff you've been doing since we've been married, acting like you single. You go ahead and continue to live your life. I'm gonna live my life. Like, I'm good. And as of that day, I was done. You know, I know people say, oh, well, you're still legally married, and if you go out and be with someone, you're cheating. Me personally, I don't consider that cheating. If I've told you we're done and documents are the only thing that are holding us together, my thoughts and feelings are like that. You do you, I'm gonna do me. I actually had no intentions of even getting a divorce. Like, I didn't even care at that point. because when you're going through all that, that just wasn't a care and concern of mine. So my personal opinion is, if each party knows that you're no longer together, then it's not cheating, whatever you go do. And that's my personal opinion. Everybody else has their own opinions about it, to each their own. My opinion is, if you've told them you're not together anymore, you both are aware that you're not together anymore, go do you. So that's obviously what I did. I was not going to stay in an unhealthy marriage. Like I said, I ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that conversation, just because I obviously just wasn't out there doing it with random people. I think it was actually New Year's Eve that this happened. But anyway, obviously I just knew I couldn't be. And once I'm done, like I cut that ties, I was like, it was like such a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because the constant stress of constant arguing, and I say this all the time, I argued enough with him for the 2.5 years I was with him to last me a lifetime. Like, that's just something I do not do from this point on. Like, I'm not arguing with people, like anybody, like being in a relationship. I just won't do it. We're grown-ass adults. We should be able to have grown-ass conversations. We can agree to disagree, but it's like, you know what I mean? Constructive, like, conversations, you know? Yeah, that definitely taught me a lot. I just cannot do the arguing. Obviously can't do the lying. Obviously can't do the cheating. That's just my personal opinion. So, I mean, I you know, I eventually had conversations with my children as they got older. I never really, I didn't talk bad about their dad. You know what I mean? But I also was honest with my kids. I didn't keep anything from them, you know, as they got older or whatever. And I've always, like I said, allowed my kids to have whatever relationship that they wanted to have one with him. And I just explained as to why I couldn't stay in that marriage. You know, I couldn't be in the marriage because I felt it was affecting me being a mom to my oldest at that time. And I just didn't like the person it was making me, and that's not the mom I wanted to be. And I just did not feel like it was good for my child to be in that environment. I didn't feel like, what was that going to benefit her? You know, and again, like I said, you're going to see your parents fight. Like, let's be for real, or anybody that's in a relationship, you know, you try to keep that away from the children, like, right? Like, you try to, but sometimes that happens. But I'm talking about like just consistent arguing, fuss, and all that stuff. Like, no kid should just have to be raised around that, you know, and it affects them, because kids are smart. Like, these kids are smart. They're not stupid. So, I just let him know, you know, the cheating, the lying, like just everything, that I could not stay in a marriage and be happy. And then, you know, or stay in a marriage and be miserable and be a good mother to my children. I just didn't see that benefiting them in any way, shape, or form. I've also, you know, I've talked before, like my ex-husband got deported. So he hasn't been around since my youngest was 10 months old and my oldest was 3. So, and I used to explain to my kids too, imagine if he had been around. Like, so many kids who have people live in the same city as them, around the corner from them, and you don't see them. Or they keep having broken promises, I'm gonna pick you up and don't pick you up. So I try to give my kids both sides of it, right? He could have been an active father, which definitely don't think he would have. You know what I mean? Or, you know, he could have been around and made all these promises again and nothing ever happened, right? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. And they'll obviously never know, right? They'll never know. So again, I've always been very open with my kids and talking to my kids about this stuff, to also help them as they get older and get in relationships, and if they choose to have children, so on and so forth. Just giving them, you know, what I've been through or what I've seen, observed, so on and so forth. I mean, you got people, honestly, that stay in relationships that don't even have kids, you know? And again, to each their own. But I on that note, I've actually had some, again, I've had somebody I was with and their parents stayed in a relationship saying that they think that God wanted them to stay in that unhappy marriage. And for me, I just do not believe God wants you to stay in an unhappy relationship or marriage. I know you take that in front of God and do that when you get married, but I just cannot see God wanting you to be unhappy. And if you've tried everything you possibly can do and it does not work, I can't imagine God's like, yes, please stay there and be miserable for the rest of your known life. I just can't. That's just, again, that's my opinion. To each their own. But one thing me personally have, I guess, been a part of or really witnessed a person staying in a relationship, and me and this person have had conversations, deep conversations, and great conversations, very receptive. And this is when I say, when you as adults should be able to have conversations about these types of things or whatever. This person had kids, and that the mother was just not, didn't have that motherly instinct, right? So they basically were at the beginning, we're taking care of one kid. Now they have two, but yeah. And I couldn't understand. And this is why I said, again, you wish I could have this conversation. I don't know. Some people may not want their business out there, but anyway, I couldn't understand the thought process of suppressing your own happiness to stay in a marriage to coexist. I guess for me, when we had these conversations, I'm just like, what do you think that's benefiting your children? To see you coexisting in a household where you're not affectionate with each other, where you don't sleep in the same bedroom with one another. And obviously, like I said, children are not stupid. Say they go to their friend's house and their mom and dad are way different than yours, right? So your children grow up like that and don't see you sleep in the same bed. You're not affectionate. You really don't do really private family things or whatever. Like, you're literally coexisting in a household as co-parents, right? And again, you're both sacrificing your happiness just because you're going to stay because you're comfortable and you think that's the right decision for your kids. And again, that's everybody's own decisions. But I really try to get an understanding of the thought process behind that, because I feel like, how is that going to affect your kid when they get older? And they like, what is a marriage supposed to be? Is it where mom sleeps here, dad sleeps here? We don't do anything as a family. Like, you know what I mean? I just feel like that will confuse them so much, that as they get older, then if you just like split and co-parented in two different households, you know what I mean? And then they each saw you in a loving relationship with somebody else. But again, like, we had those conversations. They explained that they felt like it was best for their kids to be in an environment with the two parents in the home. So they wouldn't have to shuffle them back and forth and blah, whatever. And again, like, I'm not here to judge nobody. You know what I mean? If that's the life that you choose to live and you want to sacrifice your happiness, you say, for your kids, I don't feel like you're doing that. I think that you're making it, my opinion is, you're making a very, like, I don't want to say big. I hate to say bad too, but I just feel like it's a wrong decision for your children, because I just feel like your children aren't going to be the ones to suffer in the end. Because they're going to get the wrong impression of what an actual marriage or relationship is, because you're just coexisting. And like I said, what is that teaching them when they get older? I can't imagine the questions are going to come. Like, it's inevitable. I mean, these questions are going to come from kids. Like, well, why this? Why that? Why at this person's house with their parents is this and this? Like, and again, you'll have to answer to that. So obviously that's something you have to be prepared to do, right? And, hopefully you're honest with your children in that situation and open with your kids in that situation. But I can't imagine that that's not going to hurt the kids or make the kids feel guilty. Because, kids feel guilty when you do end up getting a divorce. Oh, it's me. You know what I mean? But then to also stay and know that you stayed because of me and you were sacrificing your happiness, I can't imagine that that's not going to eat up on a kid. Like, just make them feel horrible. And why sacrifice your happiness? Why? Because why not just be separate and live happy lives? Right? Where you do you, I do me. We co-parent these kids. We do a great thing. Make sure our kids are loved and taken care of. You have your life, I have my life. I've talked about this in my other podcasts about co-parenting. If two people want to do it, they're capable of doing it. It just takes put your feelings aside and think about the children. That's all that matters. I just know, for me personally, I could not stay in an unhappy relationship, or I could not stay in a marriage that I was not happy in, because I didn't want to be miserable for my kids' whole life. Like, I can't fake the funk. I couldn't just coexist. Because I want to be with somebody who loves me, right? And cherishes me, so on and so forth, vice versa. And that's why I personally decided to get out, and not have my kids in that situation. Yes, obviously my kids don't know their father. In a sense, they don't have a relationship. They know who he is. And they didn't get to have a relationship with the father, which is why I pretty much made sure that I surrounded my children with good male role models. I didn't have a revolving door of men in my household, and I still don't, even with grown-ass kids. I take pride in that, to making sure that my kids did not see a revolving door of men in their mother's life, because I don't think that was good for kids, nor my daughters. I wanted them to see healthy relationships, you know what I mean? And I've been very, very blessed. Even though the relationships didn't work, I've been blessed with the men that I've been in a relationship with since having kids, that have been good for my kids, and good to see that. And I'm so blessed with such a great father. They have such a great father. Great grandfather, sorry. Their papa. Like, I'm very blessed in that sense too. So again, this would have been great to have conversations with people who have stayed, didn't stay, or whatever, to have different opinions. But again, here we are, just me. So, I'm just talking about my story, my experiences or whatnot. And again, everybody does it for their own reasons. And who are we here to judge? It's just an interesting topic and conversation to have, and understand people's thought processes on why, we do what we do in situations. Because if you've watched some of my other podcasts, you know how I feel about kids. Kids do not ask to be here, you know what I mean? And you want the best for your kids. And the one I was talking about earlier, like, he is a phenomenal father, like a phenomenal human being, a phenomenal father. Of course, and I just wish the best for him and his kids, in that situation. And like I said, he is a phenomenal person and father. So again, we all do what we do for our own reasons, and like I said, I'm not here to judge. This is just my opinion, my thoughts and feelings on the situation. I would love to hear, comments, questions, or, people just saying why they do what they do. So yeah, go ahead, subscribe, like, share, comment, do all that stuff. Thanks again for coming to watch another episode. And hopefully I will continue to progress, and maybe I can work on getting guests. Hopefully I can figure that out. So anyway, thanks. Bye.